And so it's really about giving them the tools. It's not perfect every time, right? I can't protect them from everything. Somebody is going to say something hurtful at some point in their lives, of course. And so for me, it's about instilling who they are inside as opposed to absorbing, someone's comment in a negative way. And it's not perfect. Like I said, I'm working on it myself, but it's enough of a reason for me to keep working on it because I know that this is not the right thing for my children. I know that they need to know who they are before anyone else defines them.
Welcome to Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan. I'm Dr. Dan. This show is about making the world a more loving, accepting, and compassionate place, one parent, one person, and one child at a time. The key to raising healthy and engaged kids is for parents to seek the same in their own lives while striving to be the best versions of themselves each day. No matter who you are or where you came from, with increased awareness, you can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint for your children, your family, and all those you care about, while living your own life to the fullest. Today's show is Breaking Stereotypes and Promoting Self-Expression Through Kids Fashion with Elizabeth Brunner. Elizabeth is the founder and CEO of StereoType, a gender-inclusive kids fashion brand that challenges the norms and stereotypes of traditional clothing. With over 13 years of experience in the fashion industry, she's an expert in creating blended fashion, a concept that she coined to describe the mix of girl and boy aesthetics that are equal in value and defined by no one. She launched StereoType in 2020, inspired by her girl-boy twins who express their individuality and joy through their own blended fashion style. Her vision is to empower children to be true to themselves and to celebrate their individuality and uniqueness. StereoType offers fashionable and functional clothing that supports a child's own style, regardless of gender. Elizabeth is also a member of the Female Founder Collective and Entreprenista, a network of women-led businesses that supports and promotes female entrepreneurship. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Dan.
I just got fired up just reading the bio. I've read it a few times before, but it's so inspiring. It's a cause. It's a cause that has become a business. But really in the heart of it, it seems like this is so purpose-driven.
You're absolutely right. It's my calling for sure. And, having my children be the inspiration definitely, catapulted me into this place of not just wanting to do something like this for my own kids, but really wanting to do it for all kids and to explore individuality as adults as well, because we don't stop growing and evolving just because we're adults. Mm-hmm. So it really became a deep calling that I really had to go after. Really no choice, but I like to say, but
you were pulled.
Definitely my purpose. Yes.
Okay. We're going to keep going this direction after we take some steps back. I am curious when design came into your life as you look back, and I'm using design loosely because this seems to be a part of the fabric of your being.
Yes, absolutely. So if I look back at my life, design really started from childhood. From a young child, I would watch my mother sew. She would sew my clothes or she'd sew clothes for herself. And I was with her when she would sew. We would go to the fabric store together. We'd pick out, the fabrics. We would pick out the patterns. I was really immersed in the process of clothing and design from a young age without realizing it was really planting a seed. So, And when I would watch her sew and spend time with her, I would collect all the scraps from her sewing projects and I would make clothing for my dolls. So it really started, if I had to guess how old I was, I'd say like maybe 4 or 5. So very, very young. And again, it didn't come full circle until many years later when I was in design school. And I was like, wait a second, I remember this. And that's really
Mm.
how it all began from those first early seeds of watching creativity unfold before me.
Was design school, as you got to that age when you had to think about what's next after high school, was design school the obvious choice, or were you pulled in a few different directions?
It wasn't obvious. I was pulled in a few different directions for sure. I mean, I thought I was going to be a photographer. I thought I would do ceramics. I thought I would go into psychology. I mean, I had a lot of different interests, but design came up again and again. And it really was innate for me. And I think the resistance was really just that I thought maybe this wasn't a serious career move for me or a serious path until I realized that it's what I'm really good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just
Mm-hmm.
decided to go for it.
Yeah, and it's a for everyone. This is a message for everyone. When things keep coming up over and over, or in seemingly random ways, they're messages, and the universe seems to continue to give us messages we need to hear until we're like, okay, I got it.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it kept coming up and
yeah,
coming up.
yeah.
And I was like, wait, I'm always buying fashion magazines. Wait a second. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's silly now to think about it because it was always there. But it wasn't until I sort of yielded the idea like, oh, I should actually consider this as a stepping stone into a career path that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really think about until my childhood. So, and I had always been creating and making things, but yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
When the universe is calling, please listen because it'll send
Mm-hmm.
the same message over and over until you get it.
When you said I was collecting scraps, collecting your mom's scraps, it triggered my thought of your first company, because you're a disruptor, and your first company, Piece by Piece, was about collecting scraps, so to speak, right?
Yes. Yes, you did your
Ex-
research. Thank you.
expensive scraps, right?
They were, yes, they were. They were wools and cashmeres and beautiful linens and things that were meant for the dump, really, because they were meant to be shown and then you get rid of them because another season comes in. So collecting scraps, yeah, it seems to be in my wheelhouse from obviously early childhood. So it started my very first business, and I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because I was
Mm,
really driven by an emotional response. Like this has to change,
mm-hmm.
and that came through with collecting the scraps and repurposing them.
Yeah, in that case, it was, you can't just throw away this good material, right? We got to do something with this.
I couldn't. No, I couldn't do
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you just led onto this by like it's emotionally driven, because I've been wondering about, you sort of, it seems like your thought process is where I'm getting at. It's like you almost back into these ideas because you feel a calling about an issue as opposed a calling to start a business.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's exactly how it is. It's an emotional response. And, the first business Piece by Piece was absolutely an emotional response. I could not throw this fabric away. I had to find a purpose for it. And it's the same with StereoType. It was, I don't like what I'm seeing in the world. This is not okay for my own children. Therefore, I need to figure out how to change it. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't really feel like, I mean, I don't have a business degree. I don't really have, the skills per se to launch a business. And yet I figured it out because that desire and that emotion was so strong. I had to act on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Please tell everyone the story. Well, there's several big stories or aha stories, but the one that you have written about on Halloween with your son, it really hit home for me.
Oh, thank you. Well, the story is that my son and my daughter, when they were around 4, picked out costumes that they wanted to wear for Halloween. And my daughter said, "I want to be Batman." She was very specific. "I don't want to be Batgirl. I want to be Batman." Okay. And then my son wanted to be a princess. And so I bought those costumes for them. And as I was getting them ready with my son, I was fixing his hair, putting his crown on, and he asked me, how do I look, Mommy? How do I look? And I said, "You look beautiful. You look like a beautiful girl." And my assumption was that's what he wanted. He wanted to look like a girl. And he looked at me and he said, Mommy, I don't want to look like a girl. I just want to feel beautiful. And that's really when the light bulb went off for me. And I just remember just sort of being frozen in time. Like I needed to remember the moment. And it was just so pure and sweet and innocent. And my daughter is, she's getting a Batman mask painted on her face. She's so excited. And I just realized, why do we put these limitations on kids? My son wants to wear this dress. He wants to wear it after Halloween. He wants to wear it now.
Right.
And that sparked that idea for stereotype at that age, in that moment.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I want to tell you the memory it sparked in me. So our son is between two girls, so girl, boy, girl. And when he was, I want to say 4-ish, we would watch a lot of Mary Poppins back then. And for those of you who remember in Step in Time, the dance scene on the chimney, and the girls had their dresses on, and they would always get their hand-me-down from their cousins, like ruby red, high heel shoes, because they made a lot of noise on the ground, and we'd all dance Step in Time. And our son had a blankie that was called Nanny, and he had this hand-me-down dress, which was probably a nightgown, it's seemingly made of the same material. So he loved his nanny dress, and he'd wear it at home, and they would dance, and we'd sing and dance, and everyone would have a blast. And it must have been right after that. And I said, okay, I'm going to the market. So I said, see you guys later. So I walked out the garage, and I think our car was in the driveway. And all of a sudden he comes running out through the garage. Dad, I'll go with you. And he's wearing his nanny dress. And so here I am. This is earliest 2000s or so. And one of your blogs, you talked about the importance of, how much of this is us as parents, of our own concerns. What will people think? And so I was reflecting, and I've thought about this situation several times over the years, because I always question how I handle it and how I would handle it differently now in this day and age. And so the backdrop is where I think I was also thinking about him, also with thinking about what would people think, is because he had two sisters and he had these big eyes and this beautiful, long, curly blonde hair. And at the time they were all blonde. They would always say, oh, what cute girls you have. And I would always see this confused look on his face. So I feel like he was confused when people would say that. So there was an element, I'm not saying the whole thing. I was like, okay, I don't know if you want people to say that to you at the store. So I said, oh, bud, something like this. I think you might want to change before we go. Why, Dad? Well, I just don't know if you should wear your nanny dress to the store. Well, why, Dad? Well, I don't know, maybe, I don't even know what I said. I was just trying to be so careful not to squash it. And I was soft about it. I don't remember. He goes, okay, Dad, I'll be right back. So he runs back out. He's wearing sweats. And I'm like, you ready to go? And he's like, yeah, don't worry, Dad. I just have it on underneath. And I'm like, awesome, let's go. So I just think that whole exchange was great. But the thing that I was feeling bad, just, looking at what you're doing and how important this conversation is just to be like, be who you, like, you're one of your things, be who you are, right? Like, just why is it so hard in this day and age for us to let kids be who they are?
Because we're deeply, deeply, deeply conditioned. We're deeply conditioned to please others. And it starts from a very young age as well, right? And that could be in our own families. It could be religious reasons. It's societal. We're deeply conditioned to tune ourselves to others. And so as parents, especially, we're deeply conditioned. We're taught to react and to correct instead of stop and absorb. And so for me, it really, and don't get me wrong, it took work for myself to get to the place where I was okay with my son wearing a dress out in public. It took work for me to do that, but I was willing to do the work. I was willing to see, why am I having trouble with this? What am I really worried about? What am I afraid of? And also, where did this idea come from that he can't wear what he wants? He's a child. My daughter is a child. She wants to wear camo print. and her baseball her baseball hat backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we're attuning to other people instead of attuning to ourselves, and especially attuning to our kids, right? We say we love
Mm-hmm.
our kids unconditionally, but is that really true? If we're
Mm-hmm.
giving them a condition that they have to abide by, that's not true to themselves. And that takes a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah,
self-reflection.
it does. And to be fair, there is the protective aspect of parents, especially depending on where you live. Like, we're both in the Bay Area, right? I believe you're
Mhm.
in the city. Are you in San Francisco?
I am,
Yeah,
yes.
right, right. So, um, we are, and I'm on the East Bay, like we're in an area which is more open, but yet anywhere you are, your parents are protective of their kids and don't want their kids to be teased, to be bullied, to feel bad. And it's this delicate balance of teaching them about the world without contributing to the programming, which sometimes we don't even know how we've been programmed.
Yes, you're spot on. There's definitely an aspect to the situation that calls for protective mode, right? I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm definitely a mama bear. Like, don't say anything about my kids unless you want to spark,
Mm-hmm.
a fight. Not really, but
Yep.
it does trigger me. And I also had to do work on that as well. If someone makes a comment about my son wearing a dress or looking like a girl, it hurts him, but it also hurts me. But what
Mm-hmm.
I've told my son is that it's okay. They don't need to know that you're a boy or a girl. You know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You also know that you can wear what you want because that's what I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really about giving them the tools. It's not perfect every time, right? I can't protect them from everything. Somebody is going to say something hurtful at some point in their lives, of course. And so for me, it's about instilling who they are inside as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to absorbing, someone's comment in a negative way. And it's not perfect. Like I said, I'm working on it myself,
Mm-hmm.
but it's enough of a reason for me to keep working on it because I know that this is not the right thing for my children. I know
Mm-hmm.
that they need to know who they are before
Mm-hmm.
anyone else defines them. And so it's a delicate dance for
Mm-hmm.
sure. You want to protect your kids, you want them to be themselves, and you
Do,
have to meet in the middle somehow.
do you find yourself interpreting for them? Um, this is what people are taught to believe. This is where this person might be coming from. This is why people think these things or say these things.
I don't do that. I think it
Mm-hmm.
complicates it. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
I try to make it simple. My kids are 11 now, so they have
Mm-hmm.
more experience out in the world, and sometimes it is hard for them to understand. My daughter doesn't have any problems with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody calls her a tomboy or thinks anything like that, it's kind of sweet and cute. But for my son, it's a lot more negative, and
Mm-hmm.
I just try to interpret it for them in terms of you know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I know who you are, and everything else doesn't matter. Let it fall away.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't, I don't know how well it works, right? I'm not in my son's body. I don't know, but I know it gives him comfort. And if I can give him comfort and some clarity, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing, the best I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Humans like certainty. Humans like to know things. I mean, all this is to ward off our anxiety about everything we don't know and how uncertain everything is. And humans like boxes, like fit in boxes and these knowns. And I think we are seeing a transformation, continuing evolution of the human species as all of these boxes in so many parts of our world and society are being challenged and in slipping away, which again increases people's anxiety and makes some people hold on even tighter. And so when I would just say I'm older than you, but I'm saying in more of our generations, there's these cause and effects. Like, well, if you dress like this, you're going to be this. And if you are interested in this kind of person or this gender, then this means you're this. And things are not at your son's, just wherever he is in his own development right now, but where he was, no, I don't want to be a girl. I just want to be beautiful and wear this. And so we are challenged, and it's such an important challenge as parents and as humans, ambassadors, to stay open to all possibilities and let these boxes and lines slip away. And it's so hard. It's so hard for people to do that.
It is. It really is. Like I said, we're deeply conditioned. And you're right, there's comfort in putting people in boxes. But what I say, or what I've learned over the years, is when you label someone, you limit them. And
Mm-hmm.
especially our children. So I really try not to label them. I mean, this is where my kids are now, but I'm open to where they'll be and
Right.
how they're evolved.
Mm-hmm.
So my son may like skirts and dresses now, but next year he may not.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter the same. And they have that space to explore. And I think we can get locked up in fear about what it means, and we try to define it for them when really we shouldn't, because we don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
it's tricky because we are so used to putting people in certain places. It really locks us into a place that may not fit us anymore. And then we find out years later in adulthood, that wasn't really who I am. And how do I figure it out now? So for
Mm-hmm.
me, looking at my kids as, a way to really support them is to remove that need to
Mm-hmm.
do the exploration later and be confused later. I just
Mm-hmm.
want them to know they are loved for who they are, and that whatever they are, they're
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yes. I wrote this down. To label is to limit. That's a very strong statement. It also makes me think of, I forget who said it, but to define is to destroy, right? Like this whole idea of, yeah, like let's all just try to just be open to what is, as opposed to try to control things because it makes us feel more secure, right? And this is that whole parent child thing about letting our kids be on their own human journey. Like yes, we are parenting them, and for the women who have physically brought them into the world, birthed them, there are very strong connections to these humans that we that are given to us, and yet they are on their own paths.
Yes, that's true. I mean, that's very powerful and it's true, but it takes work to get there, right? To be expansive in that way and to
Mm-hmm.
also want to support your child in that way. And I often tell parents that, once you make that connection with your kids, that you're really supporting and seeing the whole child before you open a doorway for yourself. And for me, it was okay. Well, maybe I'm not expressing myself the way I want to. Maybe I need to, shake up the way I'm doing things and, get more creative with my dressing or things that I
Mm-hmm.
like to do. And it's actually a gift, because what I'm telling my children when they see me pushing boundaries and, exploring new heights is that you can too.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly starting a business is definitely challenging every aspect of
Yes.
that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also showing them that I'm going after a vision and a dream, and
Yeah.
so can you.
Yes. Um, Something I always say at the end of the show, which I will, but I've never brought it into the show, which I am now, is to be the person that you want your child to be. You be that person you for your child to become, and that's what you're doing. That's what you're showing them.
That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I love the interaction too of how much, like, our kids teach us so much. We've learned, my wife and I, so much from our kids, and clearly you are learning from them as well. And you made them co-founders of the company, which I thought is like, that's just so awesome. And then when you just said how they're sort of pushing you, when I was looking on your website and reading some of your blogs and seeing some of the the photos of the photo shoot, and I was like, wow, yeah, this is fashion. Like, there, I could see there's different. It seems like different looks, different. Or I don't know if there were risks that you took in different shoots, and I wondered, like, is that part of this showing them expanding yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, they certainly have blossomed a lot in front of the camera. They were really shy when we had our first photo shoot. Now I think we're on our third photo shoot, the pictures that you see online, and they absolutely blossomed. And so did I. I mean, I'm actually pretty introverted and shy and don't even really want to be on camera that much. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I stepped in front of the camera, I looked at it as an opportunity to show a different side of myself as well, and that it was exciting for me, and
Mm-hmm.
I want them to see that like there's a lot to discover about yourself, and like I said, you don't stop learning and evolving just because you're a parent and have kids. We are showing them how life can be and how it can be beautiful in a way that is challenging even when things are tough.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids see all parts, and it does give them permission to, be curious about themselves. And I want that. I want them to always have that curiosity about
Mm.
themselves. And founding a business and having them as co-founders certainly shepherds them into a whole new world for me as well. And it gives us all an opportunity to, really show what we can do and have fun doing it in the
Mm-hmm.
process.
Fun. Yeah, that's not something that we talk about enough in the entrepreneurial world, because it's ideas and creativity and endless hours and doing everything and all of the misfires and then other directions. But fun is essential to the process.
It absolutely is. Why would you do it if it's not
Right.
fun? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's all of the other things you said, all of the challenges and misfires and failures and things like that. But there's fun in there too, and we really try to show that through the photo shoots and
Mm-hmm.
just really having fun creating content.
So in terms of creation, how blended fashion, which you have coined, what is the process of the idea coming to an
Mhm.
actual prototype?
Well, the idea came to me really when I was watching my kids dress themselves, and my son was wearing a silver skirt, and then he pulled a graphic T-shirt that had a dragon on it. And same for my daughter; she would mix and match her clothes. And for me, it was like, oh, they're really blending their wardrobes. They're blending their looks together, and the word just came up again and again. And so it gave me the idea. Well, really, what I'm doing is I'm creating a blended look. I'm
Mm,
blending boy aesthetic and girl aesthetic and creating blended fashion. And to me, it's beautiful because they're equal. There's
mhm,
value in both, and not one is better than the other. And that's really important to me as I build my business, to really push and promote equality in this way for children, especially for boys, because I feel like boys are conditioned to be strong, not cry, get up when you're hurt. Maybe not now as younger boys, but that is certainly messages that they hear. And I don't
mhm,
want that for my son. I want him to
mhm,
feel
mhm,
empowered and get in touch with who he is. And whether that's through clothing, through expressing, through dancing, through singing, those are all important aspects. And same for my daughter. She expresses herself in different ways. And
mhm.
it's important to be aware of all of it. And the blended fashion is really, I mean, what it's the yin and the yang. It's the
Right.
masculine and the feminine, and that's
Yes.
why the boombox is also the logo. It's two
Yep.
channels coming together as one to create
Oh.
harmony.
Ooh, that's deep. That is good. I
It is
saw the
deep.
boombox. That is deep. Yeah. Um, hmm, just have a moment of pause on that one, and because there is so much, it's music, right? When it comes together, it is harmony. And this programming, something else that you had written, which I was like, yeah, of course, but I didn't think about it on a conscious level, is when you're growing up, there's the boy section and there's the girl section. And you have to pick the boy section or the girl section. And then if you want to be in the other section, then it's parents either saying, no, you can't, or okay, let's find a way to do it where it's comfortable and people aren't looking at you fun. Like, it's terrible. And then I think about this future, which you are helping to create, where there is a clothing store, right? Or it's a youth clothing store. And there are I've been in some secondhand, our kids love secondhand clothing. And so I've been in secondhand boutiques where it's beautiful, right? And of course, it's in the areas where we live, where you see people just walking in, and there's all different kinds of people in all different kinds of racks trying all different kinds of things, and it just feels very natural. But it's not a typical thing.
No, it's not. I can imagine, as you're saying that, like the places I shopped in youth for secondhand clothing, and just going in and finding the coolest thing I could find to
Mm-hmm.
wear. And it really should be about that, right? I mean, when your children are young, their imagination is on fire,
Mm-hmm.
and they should be able to wear the things that light them up. And for me, that was really being a very conscious parent about what is my child doing? What is their body language when they put something on that they love? For my
Mm-hmm.
daughter, she would wear this Black Panther mask. She didn't care where we were, what was going on. She put this mask on and she felt really empowered. And for me, observing those moments where she's in her full essence is where I was like, oh, I get it. Same with my son. I mean, I remember watching him dancing outside, and he was wearing this, I don't know, some Disney gown. And he was lit up inside, and I
Mm-hmm.
could actually see it. And it
Mm-hmm.
felt like magic to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I want to create that over and over and over again. I mean, I can't, but they can. I can support it. And so that's was
Right.
my idea, was like, how can I support more of this? I want to see more of this. I want to
Mm-hmm.
grow it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really removing my own judgment from what they were doing.
Yeah.
And that does take work, and that takes
Mm-hmm.
conscious effort,
Mm-hmm.
because we are living in the subconscious. We're so
Right.
programmed. We're like, no, take it off. It's for girls,
Right.
or that's for boys.
Ha.
So it's an
Yeah.
awareness that you have to step into again and again and again and again. And you won't get it right or perfect every
Mm-hmm.
time, but
Mm-hmm.
you can always begin again.
Yeah. And listeners, Elizabeth's talking about supporting this, and I'm thinking, like, you all do not have to start a clothing company. It's really about facilitating, right? Like supporting and facilitating an environment by which your kids can be comfortable being who they are at different stages. Because we know with identity development, and it changes over time. And the challenge where many of us are used to, at least if you haven't experienced it yet, as a parent, you have experienced it being a teenager, where you do lots of different things to try on lots of different things and push usually lots of adults and parents buttons along the way, not even intentionally, but because they're pushing back on you just trying to be who you are. Like most everyone has that experience growing up. And how could we consciously and with just awareness accept this phase for what it is, whether it stays or doesn't
Mhm.
stay, without that emotional response, and just allow?
Don't be afraid of it. Just don't be afraid. And, I think there's a lot of fear. Like you said, we're worried about our kids being bullied. We're worried about what other people will think, but remove that, and just don't be in that fear and that fear mindset, because that will limit them, will
Mm-hmm.
limit you. And then you'll later look back and say, well, why was I afraid? And if you are afraid, then just ask yourself, what is it you're afraid of? What is going to happen? And try and remove those blocks, because they are blocks. They're limits that can
Mm-hmm.
be removed with work.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it's easier said than done. But if you are worried about your son, for instance, putting barrettes in his hair or wanting to paint his nails, why? Ask yourself why.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this just for girls? Why can't he enjoy it? Why can't my daughter wear her Starks jersey out in public?
Mm-hmm.
It really does take a lot of practice, but if you're willing to face some of the fear, ask yourself some of those questions,
Mm-hmm.
again, you're creating the bond that you really want with your children, which is total trust and understanding and unconditional love. And it doesn't mean that my kids can do whatever they want, right? I'm there to protect them and to guide them, but I'm not there to shape and mold them.
Mm.
They are there to understand who they are with my support.
Is there anything from your past and your own upbringing that has allowed you to have this very evolved approach to parenting? I mean, I know I saw in your books, like Dr. Shafali's book, The Conscious Parent, awesome book. All of her books are awesome books.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like, your parenting is so in line with this, what I think is an evolved way of parenting, a very conscious, a very aware. So I'm just wondering where this came from within you.
Gosh, I wish I had that answer. I don't
Mm,
know. I feel that when my children were born, they were preemies, and I think something clicked on in me that made me realize as I was holding them that they are going to need me to step up and evolve in a new way. I don't know where the message came from. Maybe it came from God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, but it was a very clear message for me. And
mm,
I looked at these two tiny babies and I realized I need to step up and step into advocacy for them whenever I can. And I think in that moment, that really just stayed with me and has continued to stay with me as I parent. And
mm,
I mean, as parents, I could say too, we always want to do better than what we experienced as children, right?
mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I have certainly had conversations with myself where I said, I'm never going to do that, or I'm going to make sure I do this for my kids. And I think there's just, kind of a dance between wanting to do better and then just trying to do better and just continuing to strive. It doesn't mean I'm perfect in any way. I certainly have unconscious moments where I'll snap and say something I wish I hadn't, but I'm willing to look at it and I'm willing to apologize or to make things clear with my kids. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that does take an emotional effort and really an interest in yourself and understanding your own
Mm-hmm.
behavior.
Mm. I listened to a podcast that you had done about a year ago, and at the time that you had about 12 different products with several in the pipeline. And so where are you now? Like, what, tell us about the now of the company and the fashion.
Yeah, so I am doing another capsule collection that should be coming out sometime next year. I don't have the exact date. So I'm continuing to evolve. I have had many parents ask me when the adult line is coming out. And
Mm,
so I do have an adult piece coming out that will match your mini, I like to say. And I'm also working on a children's book. The tagline for StereoType Kids is "Me is all I want to be," and that is
mm-hmm.
also the title of my book
Nice.
for children. So those are two exciting things that I'm working on, and yeah, they're keeping me pretty busy. But they, again, I'm so called to do this that
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing it. I'm just
Yeah.
following the internal orders and getting it done.
Nice. Nice. And I also heard from being entrepreneurial myself, and it was an entrepreneur podcast that I listened to you on. I really um, respected and understood. The question was about, funding, and, I don't think he necessarily said venture capital, but like going where you go outside of yourself to be able to scale. And you at the time were unequivocal, like, no, I want to remain in charge of everything. And when I heard that, it's not like you have control issues. It's, the reality of what happens to brands once other people get involved. And is
Yes.
that still the case?
That is still the case. Yes,
Yes.
I'm self-funded, and working as hard as I can to get the company going. It's still pretty much in startup phase, but it is really important for me to keep the integrity of the company close to my heart because it is. I mean, it's a direct line to my kids and the inspiration that they provided. I feel it's really important to keep it close as possible for as long as possible.
Hmm. You had written this statement, which, again, a lot of these things sound so simple, but they're not when we consider the programming that we have all been seeped in. Clothing is genderless. We are the ones who put gender on clothing, right? And it's like, of course, but we're just programmed to see something and put it in a category. And every once in a while, see something and go, I'm not sure. That could go, I don't know, that could go either way. But it's such a part of just our socialization. And you are taking it back to the roots, which is just, there is no such thing as gender on clothing. It's clothing. It's
Yes.
it's expression.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we can label it other ways too. It's creativity, it's
Mm-hmm.
joy, it's happiness. And that is really what I try to bring back to the root for, especially for a child who is living in a state of wonder and curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
is that it is joy for them. So when I'm watching my child pick out their clothes, they're in a state of joy and expression. They're not in a state of, "Oh, is this going to look okay for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to be
Mm-hmm.
accepted?" I mean, those are things that come later in life, but hopefully you know yourself a bit to step out of the box, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you could be wearing, something that sparkles, or something unusual that you wouldn't necessarily wear. And I think that for me, it's really going back again and again to, where was this seed planted?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm having an aversion to it, and can I remove it? Does it still work for me? Do I still believe it? It's okay if you do. I mean, I'm not telling anyone that they shouldn't believe that, you should put your kids in opposite clothing. It's more that you should parent from a place of trust, of trusting your child and supporting
Mm-hmm.
your child, and then also trusting yourself, because you can evolve and change and remove barriers that no longer serve you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have to be willing to do that. So
Yeah, it takes courage. It definitely takes courage. And I was just also thinking, we all know, we all have the experience of feeling good in clothes because there is a certain type of clothes, fabric, fit, color that makes us feel good. And when we feel good, it changes our emotions, it changes our behavior. We might even do things differently than we do when we're not feeling good. And we were just, my wife and I were talking to a close family friend who had um, a Korean color consultation, if that's the correct way of, I forget what it's exactly called, and she said it's been life changing. Like she's the colors that she was told through this process. She said she feels differently wearing the colors, and so I think sometimes people are like, they're just clothes. Don't worry about it. Just put something on. But it's clothes are beyond the creativity. They're so much more than that.
absolutely, your clothing speaks words without you actually saying anything, right? They're expressing yourself. So if somebody's looking at what you're wearing, or you're looking at what you're wearing and you don't feel good about it, hopefully you'll take the time to change it because you want to feel good about yourself. And so, yeah, dressing is expressing. I like to say that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Dressing is
Mm-hmm.
expressing. And so, giving yourself the space to express beyond what your norms are as a parent, as an adult, is so gratifying and is life changing, because you're all of a sudden you're shown a doorway to a whole new way of seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be so fixed on, well, it fits here, it needs to go here, I'm comfortable with it here. And that's okay. But what if
Mm-hmm.
there's more?
What if there's more? So speaking of more, and this might not be more, but it leads me to, what do you want? What do you ultimately want for this growing company, and I'll say movement?
I want everyone to know that they can change and that they can grow, and that we are all individuals on an individual journey and no two are alike. And I'm here to advocate for your individuality, my individuality, and my children, and everyone else's children's individuality. We are all on this journey to grow and explore who we are beyond what we're trained and conditioned to think. And that's what I'm here to do. And that is my call. My actual calling is to do that. And I'm doing it through this clothing brand.
You are. I'm steeped in child and human development, and you have opened my eyes to so many things just through the process of getting to know you and your work, through your writing, through your interviews. And so I wanted to tell you that it's it's happening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
Even though that would be an amazing place to stop, we have one more question for you, and that is the parent footprint moment question. So are you ready, Elizabeth?
I'm ready.
Okay. Tell us about a time that you became aware of yourself as an individual, as a parent, or even an awareness of your own parents, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your life, your kids, and or those you love.
Well, I have to go back to when I first held my twins, who were 5 pounds, both of them together, very small babies. And I had the awareness and the epiphany that I needed to step up. And it was a scary and terrifying moment, and an exciting and beautiful moment that I had in holding them in the very beginning. So that has definitely opened my eyes, opened my heart, and has created a totally new world that I never thought I would be in.
Awesome. Yeah, we do not know what's ahead, but back to you're such an example of listening, like listening to the signs and heeding the signs and not resisting them, even if they're a little scary and they're challenging and you're not sure exactly how you're going to do it, but you still move forward and take one step at a time.
Yes, it's courage, as you said, and listening to your inner knowing.
Yes. Yes, everyone, listen to your inner knowing. It comes in many different forms, and trust it.
Yes.
Elizabeth, tell everyone where to find more about StereoType and to keep up with the continuing evolution of the company and the brand.
Yeah, thank you. So visit stereotypekids.com to learn more about my business, myself, and all the exciting things StereoType has to offer. And you can also visit Instagram, which is StereoType Kids Official, and you can message us there. And those are our 2 main channels.
And on her website, there are several blogs filled with wisdom. So I suggest you all check that out too.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for this conversation, and wishing you all the best. And I'm going to tell everyone about it. And all of our listeners, please tell everyone about this episode and this company. And I know we have many forward-thinking individuals as part of our community who are going to be really excited to see the brand and are raising their kids with individuality and self-expression, and all a part of breaking the stereotypes and loving our kids for who they are.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Dan. It was so much fun.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for being a part of our community. I am going to leave you with the 2 things, one of which I already said. Try to be that person you want your child to become, and ask yourself the guiding question: what footprint do you want to leave? This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Strummerman, composed and performed by Pro Tunes. Artwork is by Garrett Ross. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parent Footprint Podcast, and on Twitter at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, go to exactlyrightmedia.com.